What's happening, everybody? And today I'm reviewing Saints Row 4. Um, First of all, going into Saints Row 4, I'm going to be honest, this game is clearly not like Saints Row 2 or 3 or even the first one. This one really took a complete different spin all the way down the lines, and I'm going to go into all the details of, not all the details because I certainly wouldn't want to spoil everything. Um, First of all, um, this game is if you play Saints Row 3, first of all, Saints Row 4 is exactly like Saints Row 3. It's the same world. Um, it's the same world in every way, shape, and form. It's Steelport. And even though Saints Row 4 is the same world as Saints Row 3, it feels different. It feels like a different place because of the way you're going around the map. And what I mean by that is you're going to be basically flying on top of the city, gliding around the place, and you're going to run up buildings and stuff like that. I mean, just the way you go around the city is different now because now you're basically, you're on top of the world. Basically, you're not so much on the ground anymore. Now and when you're on the ground, you're moving really fast. So, when you're on the ground, you move really fast, and when you're up in the air, you're up in the air, And that's the way that Saints Row 4 feels so different. And the city is perfect. I mean, I like the way the city is. I like the way the powers and everything correlate, and, all the fun things you can do, like get unlimited, weapon ammo, and the many different little perks and different things to do, and getting respect all the time, and side activities are always a blast. But unfortunately, some things about Saints Row 4 really take this game down a few notches, and really bring this game down and just kind of make it a bit of a disappointment. Now, there are some cool features, and I want to talk about a few of the cool features that Saints Row 4 put inside of it. One of the coolest things that Saints Row 4 did, and I mean, just like the other Saints Row games, where you could kind of make your own mixtape, how you could just, import a bunch of music, and, you could listen to the songs you want to listen to and not listen to, the other songs on the radio. So it was kind of like, if they had like 80 or 90 songs in the whole game, then you could decide, to listen to 20 or 30 of them and then not have to listen to the rest, So it's kind of like, making your own little burned disc. Decide the music that you want and then throw the rest to the side. You don't want anything to do with it type deal. And that's kind of the way that it is here in Saints Row 4. Just like Saints Row 2 and Saints Row 3 and so on and so forth. Well, here they have a new feature where even when you're on the ground, like when you're walking or running around the place or flying up in the sky, you can be listening to your music, or you can listen to the radio station while you're flying around the city, and you don't have to be in a vehicle. It's a cool feature. And when it's done like that, you can put a lot more music into it because, you're going to be listening to music pretty much all the time, so why not? So, you'll put some techno music, and so it's kind of like playing, Tony Hawk or something, or playing it's like playing, Need for Speed or something where there's always music playing, Now that you're going to have all music playing anyway, you may as well throw in some techno and some different things and blah, 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 and, you got this really big soundtrack. Music is really well done. I have to say that the music in Saints Row 4 is better than Saints Row 3, or Saints Row the Third. Saints Row the Third, you had a good soundtrack, but I felt like most of the songs just didn't fit. I like the way it is here in Saints Row 4. I love the soundtrack here in Saints Row 4. But here's some of the things that bother me about Saints Row 4, and that is going from what is the simulation onto other missions where you're not able to use your superpowers. It just feels weird. It feels really weird, and I wish that the game just would have been that you were not going back and forth, because that kind of takes away the game. It just feels weird trying to combinate, going away from being able to have the superpowers, and then now you got the superpowers again and going back and forth. I kind of don't like that. Not crazy about it. The storyline doesn't really turn me on. There's some funny parts, most definitely, with Keith David and, like I said, really nice soundtrack. But the thing that really bothers me about the game is some other stuff as well that I have to mention. Say you fly a plane in Saints Row 4. It really sucks. It's like, how in the world do you make it so that you can fly planes, but you can't even, you can't even press L1 or R1 to kind of bank to the left or bank to the right with the rudders. It makes no sense that they didn't incorporate that, so you have to like turn the whole plane, and it's very bad controls. But it's not just like that with the planes. It's like that with the cars. It's like that with everything. The controls are bad. And even if the cars were going the exact same speed as they would in Saints Row the Third, it just doesn't feel right because you go so fast in the game running around the place. What's the point of even having the vehicles when you go so fast? I mean, it's just like, the vehicles are almost useless. But I think it's kind of cool that they threw them in there just for the heck of it, in case you wanted to use a tank or do some different things. I think it's cool, but your character is so uberly powerful that it doesn't even matter to have the tank and the different things, because you can just escape the situation so quickly and get out of the situation so fast. And that's just kind of, your character is really overpowered, to say the least, to get out of the situation. And anyway, and then the other thing about the game is that you basically just constantly battle aliens all the time. And there's no real different enemies except for aliens all the time. That's basically it. And there's some, flying things that you can, what's that called? Little aircrafts that you can fly around, kind of like you could in Saints Row 3, they'll fly around and do shooting and stuff, kind of like you would in Star Wars type deal, and there's, but there's a lot of collectibles, I will give that. Saints Row 4 has added a lot of collectibles and a lot of clusters, and the clusters, you find all these clusters on top of rooftops. I mean, they're just everywhere. And you take those clusters and you spend it on things like upgrades for your powers, and, there's a lot of things to collect. And, I mean, like I said, going around this world is a whole lot different than any of the other Saints Row games. And, of course, the soundtrack is great, but I really feel like the storyline was weak. I mean, sure, it had Keith David and it had its moments, but it felt very weak, A lot of collectibles, a lot of things to do on the side. I will always say this about Saints Row games. They always know how to make a fun game. They always know how to throw a lot of fun things on the side. They always know, how to throw in a lot of customization, a lot of funny things in the game. They know how to make, really good, a lot of freedom to the game. You can kind of just do whatever you want right from the start. They really know how to do those types of things. But I really feel like this game was a letdown. A little bit. Because the thing about it was, if you remember playing Saints Row the Third, if you racked up your character enough to the point, your guy could jump off the top of the highest building that was there and then fall down on the ground and not die. And there was things like that. And it kind of felt that way anyhow, but then they just took it another step and made it so that you can actually, fly around the place. And, it just doesn't fit. It's just too weird. And, what would have really been awesome is if Saints Row 4 could have been a complete different city, and it would have been nice if they could have put some, certain environment like a forest and some desert and some different things. And they really just stuck with a city, and it just feels like they could have done more to really exploit it. And had they have made it, a game where you could, go and check out the forest and, some different things and wildlife and things like that, the game could have been, colossal. It could have just been amazing. And instead, they just always keep the Saints Row games as cities, and it's just kind of a disappointment. And of course, one of the biggest disappointments is that it's just Steelport. It would have been nice that they could have just made another city rather than just keeping it as a Steelport. All in all, I've got to say that when it comes down to it, this game, Saints Row 4, is a disappointment to me. And I just don't think the game is really that awesome. But if I had to go from a scale of, 1 to 10, 10 obviously being the highest number, I would have to give this game an 8. An 8. I think it's good, but I don't think that it's great, and I don't think it fits what most people would have expected from a Saints Row game. When people think of Saints Row, they think of a game, that's more like Grand Theft Auto. And instead, Saints Row 4 kind of went a whole other direction, and it just feels weird. It's really cool, it's a cool game, but it's really just unexpected, and it's more like a Saints Row the Third DLC type thing more than it is actually, because it really, even the graphics feel the same way, even the mechanics feel the same way, even the vehicles are pretty much the same. Of course, the city's exactly the same. Obviously, it just has, quite a bit of aliens all over the place and things like that, but it still feels like the same city. And of course it feels different because, you're kind of going up in the air, you're not so much on the ground, like I said, you're flying around the place. Kind of feels different in that aspect, but still, when it comes down to it, you're still in the same city and it's not a whole new map, and it just kind of feels a bit disappointing. So when it comes down to it, I'd have to give this game a solid 8 out of 10 when it comes down to it. It's definitely a fun game to play, but I don't think that it's everything that it could have been. And I think that it would have just been better if they would have just stayed away from trying to give the superpowers. It's just too weird. They should have just made a whole other franchise and made a game, something else rather than just calling it Saints Row 4. They should have just made something else. So anyway, that's the end of this review of Saints Row 4. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys later.